Hello, I'm Annette Young and welcome to the 51%, a show about the women who are reshaping our world coming up. While Syrians celebrate the fall of Bashar al-Assad, among the joy concern is expressed over the need to protect women's rights in a country decimated by decades of a cruel dictatorship. Also, with Donald Trump heading back to the White House, what will it mean for women across the world, particularly those reliant on US aid in the field of reproductive rights? We'll be talking shortly to journalist Neha Wadekar, who's been investigating how right-wing American Christian groups that oppose abortion are significantly increasing their spending in Africa. We meet the Iranian singer dubbed the Nightingale, who performs around the world except in her own home country. But first, and all eyes are on Syria and its Islamist-led transitional government as Syrians express much joy at the end of more than 50 years of a brutal dictatorship under the Assad family. Still, Human Rights Watch is calling on the rebel group, Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, or HTS as it's known, to protect women's rights, among others, as it attempts to lead the country out of chaos. It's also asking for HTS to include women in any governance structure. In the meantime, our colleagues at France 2 have headed out to the streets of Damascus and asked women there what they are hoping for.
In Damascus, the celebrations haven't stopped since the Assad dictatorship fell. Women are cheering their newfound freedom and intend on keeping it. French teacher Anan Assi feels reassured that the rebels have promised to uphold personal freedoms.
We greet them, they respond. We congratulate them, they respond. I hope with all my heart that things will stay this way. Because if they start to oppress women like us, who are open-minded and have open-minded convictions, we will fight against it.
We're united despite our differences, and we'll make sure it stays that way.
This man embraces his young daughter, caught between hope and fear.
I hope they'll let women study and do what they like with their appearance. Like my daughter with her uncovered hair.
Sedra Al-Mala sells clothes to fund her law studies. She wants women to have the career they choose, unlike in other countries run by Islamists.
It's true, I'm a bit afraid, but I don't want to live in fear anymore. I want my dreams of becoming a lawyer in service of our society to come true.
At this funeral for a famous opposition figure, women have turned out in force, intending to play an active role in society.
We asked the new government to give us a real role in the Syria that we're building. We can't be pushed aside.
For now, militia patrols appear to be respecting the interim government's orders of tolerance towards women.
And US President-elect Donald Trump is set to reinstate the global gag rule, which prohibits international aid groups from receiving any American funding if they so much as tell a woman that abortion is a legal option in her country, provide a safe service, or advocate for abortion rights. So against this backdrop, it's no surprise to learn that American Christian groups are significantly increasing their funding to the anti-abortion movement in Africa. Investigating this story for the Fuller Project is journalist Neha Wadekar, who joins me today from London. Thank you so much for your time, Neha. The increase in funding anti-abortion groups in Africa comes as abortion laws are slowly being liberalised across the continent. So just how widespread is this campaign and which countries are being particularly targeted?
The activities by the American Christian right groups are affecting countries across Africa. We looked at activity primarily in Kenya, but we also know that Uganda, Nigeria, Ghana, and Malawi are all being affected. But really, every country in Africa is susceptible because these Christian right groups have a lot of political power, a lot of influence over certain members of the Trump administration, and can make a huge difference in advocating against abortion and other reproductive rights across the continent.
So why the obsession with Africa for these American organizations?
Africa is a very religious continent. It's got high populations of both Muslims and Christians, and it really is fertile ground for these groups to be able to come and spread their ideology. The United States has a lot of influence and a lot of power. It is, in the world, the highest healthcare funder. It provides the most amount of money for healthcare and aid out of all the countries that are donating. And so these groups have a lot of influence and really the ability to push this agenda. And Africa is the perfect place for them to be able to do that.
So what are their methods of operation?
We have seen a few different methods of operation. I would say the first is really exporting these kind of scare tactics. So some of the things that we're very familiar with in the United States are protests outside of reproductive health clinics. For example, people standing outside holding baby dolls that are covered in red paint to symbolize blood, taking out billboards, really being active on the streets, marches for life. Those are some of the more visible things that we see. But these groups are also strategizing with local anti-abortion groups to make change in places like the courts.
Now, with Donald Trump set to return to the White House, what will the reinstatement of the global gag rule mean for countries such as Kenya, Uganda, and other African nations?
The reinstatement of the global gag rule is going to be absolutely devastating for these countries. To begin with, obviously, it cuts off funding for any healthcare organization that's providing or even counseling on abortion. What that means for organizations like KMET, which is a group that I visited in Western Kenya, for that community, they're really the only shop in town. This is a very rural community. They don't have a lot of resources. KMET is a local clinic, and women will come there to get everything from pap smears to vaccinations. What happens when the global gag rule is reenacted and expanded, as Donald Trump is expected to do, we see that kind of funding cut off because KMET says it will not stop providing safe abortion services and counseling to women. That means it's going to lose its American funding. And what we then see on the ground is women and girls who are not able to access reproductive care and end up having unwanted pregnancies or even trying to terminate unwanted pregnancies with unsafe abortions. They'll use methodologies like drinking bleach or eating crushed glass. And obviously these can have devastating effects. They could either end up being maimed or become disabled as a result of these attempts, or they could even die.
So how can reproductive rights activists fight against this influx of money and influence from the American Christian far right?
Well, the first thing is to tap into the rest of the international community. So there are other donors besides the United States who do provide funding for health and reproductive health across Africa, making sure that those countries are able to step up and fill in the gap that's left by this signing of the global gag rule is critically important. And of course, speaking out, staying on the streets, advocating, and trying to make sure that local laws reflect the needs of the local population and are not altered or adjusted to meet whatever the American president at the time wants to see happen.
Neha, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you so much. Now, for more than 45 years, Iranian authorities have banned female singers from performing in public. However, one woman managed to do a concert in Tehran back in 2001, being her first and last gig at home. Regardless, Sepideh Raissadat went on to make a name for herself on the international stage. France 24's Aurore Dupuis went to meet her.
Armed with her sitar and her voice, Sepideh Raissadat is touring the world to raise awareness.
Women's voice is symbolically very much connected to women's rights. Banning women from singing is ignoring their right.
Sepideh was born just after the 1979 Islamic Revolution, when music was criminalized. Those found guilty were fined, lashed, or imprisoned. Sepideh's passion for music started at the age of 9, singing at family reunions, discreetly studying in her teacher's basement, namely the master of traditional Persian music, Parissa.
People were not allowed to dance, to play music. They were breaking musical instruments, and the police came and they wanted to control in the houses and in private lives of people.
And so what did you do then?
We were still having our parties, and we were listening to music. I could not live without music.
Sepideh went on to study music in Italy and Canada. But before that, she did the unthinkable for an Iranian female artist. She sang on stage in Tehran and became the first woman to perform in public since the ban.
The concert was advertised as singing together and playing together, and that was why before the concert the authorities didn't know that I was the only singer of the concert.
Luckily, Iranian authorities didn't prosecute her, but it was her first and last gig in Iran. Sepideh now lives in Germany and sings with an all-male band across the world.
I hope one day we could all appear on stage and sing for the Iranian population with no barriers and no obstacles.
And that's it for this edition. To mark the end of the year, we're going to leave you with some images of key news events impacting women around the world in the last 12 months. We'll be back in the new year, so until then, wishing all of you a joyous festive season.
Madam Shangha, if you will it be a feminist?
We hope that these games in France will offer a solution to the inequalities between women and men.
Feminists take to the streets and decorate them with slogans in support of the French woman.
I don't care, I'm gonna stay here!
To think that part of my work will be there for 100, 200 or 300 years, it's incredible.